Yo Joes! After introducing a number of awesome characters in the first 4 years of G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, the first real-life G.I. Joe enlisted in 1986.
Sergeant Slaughter here, and it does me proud to be part of the G.I. Joe team for 1986.
Sergeant Slaughter had been whooping the Iron Sheik from pillar to post in the World Wrestling Federation in '84 when he got the call from Hasbro to become the team's first figure based on a real-life person. Sarge was ready to roll. His boss, Vince McMahon, was not. With the release of LJN's WWF Wrestling Superstars line, a figure of the Sarge had been planned, and Vince didn't like the idea of a Hasbro figure competing for sales with his LJN figure. Vince gave the Sarge an ultimatum: turn down the Hasbro deal or you're gone. The Sarge decided he could always be a wrestler, but this would be his only chance to be the world's first real-life Joe. So his caisson went rolling along out of the World Wrestling Federation and into Pawtucket, Rhode Island. And it was a perfect match. The squared circle's drill instructor seamlessly transitioned from the ring to the pit.
G.I. Joe! Nobody takes on Cobras better than Sergeant Slaughter.
Yeah, Joe!
Keeping the Joes in top condition while keeping the Cobras in black and blue condition. His mic work in wrestling also translated to the Sunbow animated series, where he easily kept up with, and sometimes surpassed, the intensity of his fellow voice actors.
You're here because you're an industrial straight follow-up!
And it's a role Sarge has proudly embraced to this day, serving as an ambassador to the brand and handing out Cobra clutches at conventions to fans across the world. Hasbro tried to catch lightning in a bottle again in '87 with their second real-life Joe, William the Refrigerator Perry, codename The Fridge.
That's right, it's William the Refrigerator Perry.
The Fridge is joined G.I. Joe!
While the Fridge rocks, and the figure itself was another great 100% original mold, Da Bear didn't perform as well in the entertainment industry as he had on the gridiron. His reading on the Fridge figure mail-away commercial failed to capture his on-field intensity.
And you can get a free fridge. Here's how. Watch out, Cobra. Fridge is coming through.
And having a football player from Chicago be part of a daring, highly trained special mission force was more of a stretch than a drill instructor from Parris Island, South Carolina. I was excited to see who the next real-life Joe would be after the Fridge, hoping for another home run like the Sarge had been. But no one ever came. They went with the fictional Super Trooper in '88, who did have an actor playing him in the commercial, but that doesn't count as a real-life Joe. Fans were hoping for someone they already knew, who appeared on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, WWF Superstars, or the news. Not just an actor, but a larger-than-life personality who would fit right in with the larger-than-life Joes. It wouldn't happen again until 2007, when Rowdy Roddy Piper was released as an exclusive at the 2007 International G.I. Joe Convention.
You do not throw rocks at a man who's got a machine gun!
And I'm not talking about Joes like Tunnel Rat and Scoop that were inspired by real people.
You're talking about a couple of studs.
I'm talking about a performer who used the same name in their previous field as would appear on the file card.
And I think to myself, well, why did they make this?
And the Rowdy Scott from Glasgow, by way of Saskatoon, as one of Destro's Scottish brigade of Iron Grenadiers was just as perfect a match as the wrestling ring's drill instructor and the football field's tank as a G.I. Joe.
The only difference between us is ugly!
And that's what this list is about. There's plenty of personalities from the 80s that I'm a fan of, but not necessarily every one of them would make a great Joe or Cobra. Like the Ultimate Warrior, for example.
Fear is the air that cowards breathe!
Now a mythic character in the ring, but outside of it, better suited as a master of the universe than a G.I. Joe. So if Hasbro had continued to enlist real-life people to be Joes in the original Real American Hero line up to 1994, here's my top 5 of who I would have loved to see fighting for freedom wherever there was trouble, alongside Hawk, Duke, Flint, Snake Eyes, and Sergeant Slaughter.
Number 5, Mr. T.
You want larger than life? Look no further than the man whose first name is Mr.
Middle name is that period, last name is T.
He burst on the scene in '82 along with Hulk Hogan in Rocky III.
Dead meat.
And then starred in the A-Team from '83 to '87 as Sergeant B.A. Baracus.
Come on, let's get out of here!
It's not just his time as B.A. that would have made him a perfect Joe, though. Mr. T served in the U.S. Army in the mid-'70s. and in November of '75 was awarded a letter of recommendation by his drill sergeant. In a cycle of 6,000 troops, he was elected top trainee of the cycle and promoted to squad leader. The title of Mr. T is well earned.
If you work real hard, you can become the best that you can be. And that's a promise from me, Mr. T.
The A-Team had some merchandise from Galoob, both 3 3/4 inch figures as well as 6-inch.
They're the A-Team. You know they're soldiers of fortune. They're the A-Team. Helping people in need.
But they were leagues behind G.I. Joe. With the show ending in '87, Mr. T would have been free of any licensing contracts associated with the A-Team, and wouldn't have had to face the same dilemma Sergeant Slaughter did. The Joe team had plenty of different ethnicities for kids to look up to. Black kids had Stalker and Roadblock. Latino kids had Zap and Law.
What's the matter, man? Let's look sharp, eh, compadres?
Indian kids had Spirit and Airborne. Some gals on the team for little girls to look up to, like Scarlet and Lady J. Blondes had Duke and Hawk. Brunettes had Breaker and Hawk. Gingers had Deep Six and Ripcord. But how about a follower of Jesus Christ spreading the good news? Well, Doc was a chaplain's assistant, but it was never mentioned on the show. Hasbro shied away from having any religious mentions in their toy line, but something tells me Mr. T wouldn't be so shy or concerned about losing money due to his spiritual convictions.
And hopefully by telling my story, you can be inspired and say, wow, if God done that for Mr. T, and a lot of people see me and say, wow, I didn't know Mr. T was a Christian.
As a Joe team member, I can picture Mr. T saving countless Joes, as well as civilians, but not for his own glory, or G.I. Joe, or Uncle Sam, but for the glory of his Savior, Jesus Christ. Here's what I think his file card would have looked like. Chaplain, codename Mr. T, file name T, Mr. Primary military specialty, chaplain. Secondary military specialty, military police. Birthplace, Chicago, Illinois. Grade E4. Pity the Cobra who messes with Mr. T. Top trainee in U.S. Army recruiting class. When he was a new recruit in the Army, his platoon sergeant punished him by giving him the detail of chopping down trees during training camp at Fort McCoy in Wisconsin. The sergeant didn't specify how many trees to cut down though, so Mr. T single-handedly chopped down over 70 trees in the span of 3.5 hours before being relieved. Valued member of Military Police Corps, star of hit movies and TV shows. Above all, devout follower of Jesus Christ. And the quote reads,
When you pity somebody, you're showing them mercy. Because I didn't start this pity stuff. It was in the Bible. You know, you find pity so many times in the Bible and food so many times. So I put them together. Pity the food.
Number 4. The Road Warriors.
If you thought Sergeant Slaughter was ridiculously overpowered, wait till you get a load of the LOD as G.I. Joes.
The Animal, the Hawk, the Legion of Doom. Number one now, number one forever. We snack on danger and we dine on death.
Wrestlers are a great talent pool to pick from when choosing real-life Joes. Here's 2 more from Chicago. They've got the look, the rap, and the intensity needed to face Cobra on the battlefield.
And you ain't gonna like it one bit.
Or face the Dreadnoks. At first I thought the Legion of Doom would make better Dreadnoks than Joes, their look fitting right in with Road Pig. But the Dreadnoks were more comedic whipping boys for G.I. Joe. The Road Warriors don't have that strict military vibe of Sergeant Slaughter or Mr. T. So where to put them? Enter Sergeant Slaughter's Renegades, G.I. Joe's answer to the Dreadnoks. Every bit as disciplined, eventually, as the Joes, but without the spit-shined boots.
275 pounds, 290 pounds, and a brain.
Too often when the Road Warriors or Legion of Doom figures are released, they omit the man driving the runaway train.
Scarier now, look who's driving the train.
Precious Paul Ellering.
And I am the Procurator of Destruction.
In the old days, only the original Remco line got this right, including him in a 3-pack with Hawk and Animal. Precious Paul would be a must-have in this 3-pack set, a follow-up to Sergeant Slaughter's original Renegades 3-pack. In an era of wrestling managers who were wimpy, conniving cowards who couldn't take a single punch, the Road Warriors manager was almost as jacked as they were, and whenever he joined them in 6-man tags, it was basically like facing 3 Road Warriors instead of just 2. The difference between this one and the painted up guys is Precious Paul was reading the Wall Street Journal while putting the boots to you.
And we've always earned our money the old-fashioned way. We beat people for it.
Legion of Doom, codename Road Warrior Hawk, Road Warrior Animal, Precious Paul Ellering. File name Classified. Primary military specialty Demolitions. Secondary military specialty Infantry. Birthplace Chicago, Illinois. G.I. Joe has 2 last resort weapons that are to be used when absolutely positively no other options are available. They're a last resort because of the massive collateral damage they cause in the process. Number 1 is the Rolling Thunder. Number 2 is the Road Warriors. Option 1 is preferable because the pair of nukes it fires causes less collateral damage than Hawk and Animal do. And the quote reads,
We still don't care. Anytime, anywhere. Tell 'em, Hawk. We'll be deviating septums, ripping out goozles, and knocking tartar off the teeth.
Number 3, Chuck Norris.
Before Chuck Norris facts on the internet created the legend of Chuck Norris,
I heard another rumor that you were bitten by a king cobra.
Yeah, I was. But after 5 days of agonizing pain, the cobra died.
he was still a pretty huge deal in the 80s, with great action flicks like Lone Wolf McQuade, Missing in Action, Code of Silence, and Invasion USA, displaying his mastery of martial arts coupled with his quiet, calm demeanor.
This is for me.
Chuck Norris was basically a real-life Snake Eyes, if Snake Eyes hadn't been disfigured and lost his voice. If you were disappointed by the Snake Eyes movie, check out Lone Wolf McQuade. He's basically Snake Eyes in it pre-accident and even has his own timber that tags along. His legend had grown so much by the mid-80s that Kenner decided to make him an action figure before Hasbro had the chance to.
Chuck Norris stars in Chuck Norris Karate Commandos.
Chuck Norris Karate Commandos was a toy line and a cartoon that was there. Not really much more that can be said about it, but I wonder if Chuck Norris had become a Joe and had the Joe's creative team behind him, if we'd be talking about the Chuck Norris mail-away figure today in addition to the Sergeant Slaughter mail-away figure.
I want your opinion, I'll beat it out of you.
Like Mr. T, Norris has real-life military experience. He enlisted in the Air Force in 1958 and served in the military police while stationed in South Korea, where he got his introduction to martial arts. We may have had an unofficial Chuck Norris figure with Outback in '87, but how cool would it have been to have an official Chuck Norris G.I. Joe? Commando, codename Chuck Norris, file name Norris Carlos R, primary military specialty Covert Operations, secondary military specialty Hand-to-Hand Combat Instructor, birthplace Ryan, Oklahoma, grade A1C. Expert in marksmanship, survival training, and hand-to-hand combat. Awarded several commendations and medals including Air Force Good Conduct Medal, National Defense Service Medal, and Korean Service Medal. Trained with Grandmaster Jae Chul Shin, founder of the World Tang Soo Do Association, and Grandmaster Do Sik Mun. Named All Air Force Champion in Lightweight Division for Martial Arts in 1961. Won the Professional Middleweight Karate Champion title in 1968 and held title for 6 straight years. Won Karate's Triple Crown in 1969 for the year's most tournament wins, and the Fighter of the Year award by Black Belt Magazine. And the quote reads,
He makes onions cry. He can kill 2 stones with 1 bird. Before the boogeyman goes to sleep, he checks under the bed for Chuck Norris.
He has a tower power. He is too sweet to be sour. He is the rap master. There is no other.
Number 2, the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes.
I didn't want to go to the wrestling well too often for this list because it would have been really easy to fill up all 5 spots with grapplers. But the Dream transcends wrestling.
If you want some of the dream, the legend, if you will, in public, come on out and get it right now.
No other wrestler captured the hearts of wrestling fans in the 80s like the blue-eyed son of a plumber from Austin, Texas.
I want you at home to know my hand is touching your hand.
When the 4 Horsemen broke his leg and he sought revenge,
You put hard times on this country by taking Dusty Rhodes out. That's hard time.
he didn't run on just his own passion. he ran on America's passion. I say America because my part of Canada didn't get the NWA where Dusty was featured until 1989, and by then he had already joined the WWF, in all his polka dot glory. At first glance, to someone not familiar with wrestling or with Dusty Rhodes, they may think, what's the big deal? He doesn't look that impressive.
I admit I don't look like the athlete of the day supposed to look, but brother, I am bad and they know I'm bad.
Years before Scott Hall made being a bad guy cool, Dusty Rhodes was the biggest, baddest bull of the woods there was. What he lacked in abs and biceps, he made up for 100-fold in heart, intensity, charisma, and love.
The love that was given me, and this time I will repay you now.
And I can't think of a better real-life person for General Hawk to delegate some authority to than Colonel Dream.
Live in on the end of a lightning bolt.
In addition to a Dusty Rhodes G.I. Joe, he would have to have come with a vehicle titled the Lightning Bolt. The Dream always talked about living life on the edge of a lightning bolt, so I picture his vehicle being similar to a battle ram from Masters of the Universe, with the seat ludicrously placed right on the edge. What if someone takes a shot at him, you may ask? I think Dusty would look right down the barrel of that gun, and as the bullet or shell was speeding towards him, he'd raise the bionic elbow and coolly say, "Find it, baby."
Then let's go for it. Let's go for it.
Strategic Commander, codename Colonel Dream. File name Rhodes Dusty. Primary military specialty Infantry. Secondary military specialty Hand-to-hand combat instructor. Birthplace Austin, Texas. Grade 06. Riding on the edge of a lightning bolt in a battle, the American Dream stirs the souls of the Joes like no other. Equipped with bionic elbow of unknown origin or capability, witnesses have seen it dent a HISS tank, knock the head off a bat, and fight off all 4 horsemen in a War Games cage. 3-time NWA World Heavyweight Champion, 3-time NWA World Television Champion, United States Champion, and veteran of 11 War Games matches. And the quote reads,
I am the current bull of the woods, if you will. And that makes me the baddest of them all.
Number 1.
President Ronald Reagan.
My fellow Americans, I want to begin tonight by telling a story. A true story of courage and hope.
The last entry gave Hawk a colonel to delegate authority to, but how about something truly outrageous in the 80s G.I. Joe fashion? How about a superior for Hawk in the 80s? The Commander-in-Chief himself, President Ronald Reagan.
In fact, I'm thinking about a career change.
Known as the movie star president to many.
Ask him to go in there with all they've got. Win just one for the Kipper.
He actually had a storied military career before he was telling stories in the movies. He served as a second lieutenant in the U.S. Army Reserve and a captain in the United States Army Air Forces during World War II. He was United States President from 81 to 89, the golden era of Real American Hero, and I would have loved to have seen a brown leather jacket wearing president figure commanding the Joe team on the ground right alongside Hawk. I always thought it was hilarious that a brigadier general would be riding in jeeps and flying jets during battles with Cobra, but that's what set the entertainment world of G.I. Joe apart from real-life military outfits. Everyone put boots to ground and had bullets, or lasers, whizzing by their heads, even the top dog.
Bye-bye.
Back to work!
And the thought of the President of the United States riding in a vamp, blasting away at Cobra with his pistol and yelling, "Well, yo Joe," is just so gloriously absurd, gloriously 80s G.I. Joe. Of course the President would have to be a G.I. Joe on the field.
I am enormously touched.
For the same reasons General Hawk was, the desire to risk himself right alongside his soldiers and be seen as an equal, and to get away from the boredom of the boardroom.
That's a source of annoyance to a great many people.
President, codename Dutch. File name Reagan, Ronald W. Primary military specialty Intelligence. Secondary military specialty Public Relations. Birthplace Tampico, Illinois. Grade President of the United States. Served in U.S. Army Reserve 1937 and 1942, U.S. Army 1942, U.S. Army Air Forces 1942 to 1945, U.S. Army Reserve 1945 to 1953. Served 2 terms as Governor of California 1967 to 1975. President and Commander-in-Chief 1981 to 1989. In 1981 was shot and survived an assassination attempt 69 days into his first term as president, joking that it ruined one of my best suits. And the quote reads,
"Well, they say if you want something done right, you have to do it yourself. The Joe team does an exemplary job, but I'm suiting up to send a message to Cobra. I will not lead from afar. I'll lace up the combat boots, I'll put on the helmet, and despite what the Secret Service says, I'll be right there on the front line next to Hawk and Duke. Because my 45 might not do a lot of damage against a HISS tank, but my presence is what I hope will make the difference. When a bullet whizzes by your head, and you look over and your Commander-in-Chief is in the foxhole with you and says, 'Cover me, soldier, I'm going in.' You don't have a single soldier who will lollygag and drag their butt. That's how much I believe in our real American heroes. Yo, Joe, my fellow Americans."
That's my list of dream real-life G.I. Joes in the 80s. Who was a larger-than-life individual or tag team that you think would have fit right in with America's daring, highly trained Special Mission Force back then? Share your thought in the comments spot. Hit the like to give the video a spike, and to join the tribe, hit subscribe. Yo, Real Joes!